Man, this book was a step up from the last one. Let me tell you, like, oh my God. Now, I read Empire of Silence and I did a book review on it. And I said in that video that that was a very good book, but it just wasn't this spectacular 5-star perfect book that like most of BookTube will tell you that it is. And my comment section pretty much filled up with comments saying, just you wait, it gets better. Well, I'm here to tell you now, it got better. So as usual, once I get into a series past book one, I pretty much typically just tend to go full spoilers because you can't really discuss book two in a series without at least spoiling book one. So I just use that as permission to just go full gangbusters on, spoilers. So that's what we're going to do. So this is your spoiler warning for the video. I am going to just ruin the shit out of this book. And first things first, the opening of this book goes full Dune Messiah on us. And now this is very well established. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but he draws very heavily from the Dune universe to take inspiration from it and add things into this book. But like I said, this is like just full on Dune Messiah. Whereas like without spoiling Dune, it's like the end of Dune book one. It's like, we're going to go do this thing. So you expect book two to be them doing the thing. And they're like, no, psych, that we're not actually even going to discuss that at all. We're just going to jump to 12 years later and kind of deal with the aftermath of it. And this is book one, kind of like, oh, we're going to go off and have some adventures as a space pirate crew or something like that. And next thing you know, it's like, yeah, no, we're not going to do any of that. We're going to pick up after we did that. And we're going to pick up 12 years later. And it's the exact same 12 years later that Dune Messiah had. Actually, this one's something like 40 something years later, but he was awake for 12 of the years. I was like, interesting number you chose there. And don't get me wrong, I'm not mad at it by any means. I'm just saying, I'm sure that wasn't a coincidence. That's all. Now, like I said, this book is just a definite step up. It feels like a huge step up once you get into it. It feels like such a large step up from the last book, which I think I gave a rating of an 8 to, which makes me wonder if I rated the first book too highly because this is so shockingly impressive of a step up. Like the second we get to the scene with the painted man, I was like, oh, this is good. Like the whole tone and mood and feel and atmosphere of this book is just a whole new animal compared to what the first book was. And I love it. And it only goes up from there. But I will say that it isn't a perfect book because I did have a nitpick that comes in right at the beginning of the book. And it's pretty much my only nitpick. And it comes, like I said, right at the beginning of the book. So I am going to go ahead and I'm going to get that out of the way right off the bat. But kind of bear with me here because it'll be all up from there. Just kind of listen to me complain for a second before I get to the good stuff. So in the last book, we had this relationship between Hadrian and Kat. And it was like a stepping stone in the story to get to other things as we went along. But in the end of the book, he thinks back on that like it was some big, impactful moment in his life. And it was really important to him that he kind of reflects on. I thought, man, that apparently was way more impactful to him as a character than it was to me as a reader, because to me, it barely even registered like, oh yeah, I guess that was a thing that happened. Let's move on. Now in this book, he's really going to double down on that. And we're going to think of her multiple times throughout this book. And it really weighs on him. And I'm just like, man, we're really going for it with that Cat aspect. And he comes back to it and he really wants to stress that this is an important thing for Hadrian. And that's fine because this is a character in a scene that we actually dealt with. Maybe it just didn't hit me the way it hit him or other readers. That's fine. But this kind of leads me in my next thing. We now have a new relationship with a new female, an actual love interest with the captain of the ship. And this is a love story that happened literally off the pages in between the two books. And he presents it like it's some big impactful thing that's now going to be in Hadrian's life. And this one's even weirder because we don't even have frame of reference because we don't even know the events of this love story. And then we're going to like lead into these big scenes where they end up like on opposite sides of like a philosophy, and he's trying to leave and she's trying to stay behind. And it leads to these big dramatic scenes of, I loved you. And I'm just like, what It's so odd because it feels like it's supposed to be this big dramatic scene, and there is no drama and there is no tension because we have no frame of reference for this relationship. It just feels weird, odd, forced, out of place, and like drama injected into a scene that would have been just fine without that added weirdness of, but this relationship that you've never seen or never even experienced or care about in any way, shape, or form, and now we're going to have this, oh my God, but I loved you. Okay, sure, I guess. If you say so. I don't know, it was just weird. It was so odd, unnecessary, and just thrown in there for no reason, and I had no reason to care as it was happening. So why was it there? Like I said, the scene would have been fine all by itself. It was 100% unnecessary, and I'll stand by that. Now, like I said, this book sets itself apart from the last book right off the bat. In terms of mostly tone and atmosphere, it's just way darker and way more ominous. The characters feel more ominous. Like I said, from that painted man on, it is just insane. The pacing is way faster than the last book, and there's not even like a whole huge amount of action in this book before you get to the climax. There are a couple of action set pieces that happen early on in the book to kind of get you moving and get the ball rolling and get us on our way to Vorgosos or whatever the name of that planet is. So there's some action, but it's not even the action that makes it fast paced. It's just the story itself. You get going and you just don't stop. And it's really, really a page turner of a book. Once you get into moving through it, you really don't want to stop. A lot of it's mystery. A lot of it's just like, what's happening? What's going on? Some of the set pieces are, even when they're not action, they're just so engrossing, you just can't stop. It's just this interesting sequence of interesting characters followed by mysteries, followed by more interesting characters, and it just doesn't stop. And if we're going to talk about characters, we have to talk about Karn. This character, the second we get to his throne or whatever it is that he sits on, I was just like, oh, damn. Let's go back to atmosphere and just tension and tone and this creepy guy sitting up here on his throne living off of hoses and tubes, and he's been alive for 15,000 years. Like, it's just so impressive. I was locked in. The overwhelming presence of that character alone cannot be overstated. Every single second that he was present in a scene, I was absolutely eating it up. And then comes the Brethren. And it's just like, dude, what the fuck? Now, I said in the last video that I was getting some real serious Halo vibes from some of the story elements there. And you cannot go from the weird Halo vibes from that one and move into this book, and then all of a sudden you have this all-knowing tentacle monster and tell me that you don't get Gravemind vibes from that. But then it's going to mix that with like the lore backstory of like the Dune universe where, you know, you had the AI thinking machines in Dune and then they went to war with them and now they're banned. And in this universe, we had the AI thinking machines and we went to war with them and now they're banned. But this is like some weird, freaky remnant of that AI stuff, and now it's made of flesh and neural links, and now it's a weird tentacle monster, but it's the AI from the past. It's like they took all of the lore, not all of the lore, it's like he took bits of lore from all of these different places, threw it into a blender with some weird fleshy tentacle arms with hands on the end, and we ended up with the Brethren. I fucking love it. It's great. I don't even know what to say. This was wonderful to read. It was just so... I'm going to have to keep going back to so atmospheric, and just the tone of it was so good. That was one of my favorite chapters in the whole book. Just him there with this thing speaking. Oh gosh, wonderful storytelling, wonderful atmosphere. And I will say we have definitely come a long way from gladiators with daddy issues, and we're only in book 2. And then we get to the setup for the big end of the book, and that's going to be the introduction of the Cielsen and the actual coming of the prince. And this is all going to be basically kickstarted by a betrayal from one of the members of our group, and that betrayal comes from Switch. Now this hits hard. This is a character beat that we, or at least I, was extremely invested in. This is a character that I actually care about. And this was like the scene where Hadrian confronts him and goes face to face with him and just tells him to leave. I don't care where you go. I don't care what you do. Go the fuck away. And I'm just like, damn, like that was just massively affecting, massively effective. It feels like one of those massive character beats that Chris tells us that Hadrian feels, but this one we feel. And it's just extremely well done. Just so good. And then this leads into the introduction of the prince of the Cielsen, one of the Cielsen princes or princess, this guy, girl thing, whatever this thing's supposed to be. And let me tell you, this thing is intimidating. This shit is scary. And he shows up and he just, the commanding presence that this thing has, and it shows up with this weird human slaves with like floppy fingers because they've mutilated the hands, and oh my god, it's just so off-putting and unsettling when they get there. And all of a sudden the whole plan is to like discuss with this thing, and we're going to negotiate with it, and we're going to negotiate a peace treaty or something like that. And you don't even care anymore. Like you've been invested up until now in Hadrian's idea and Hadrian's dream of negotiating peace with the Cielsen, and we're going to talk to him and we're going to work this out or something like that. And the second this guy shows up, you don't want that anymore. You're like, you know what? I don't think I want to negotiate with this creepy bastard. I don't think I want the negotiations to go through. I don't think I want this to succeed anymore, Hadrian. I don't like this guy. I don't trust this guy. Then, yeah, I'm not sure where this is going, but I don't like it right from the outset. And of course, the negotiations don't work out, which then is going to lead into one of the most bonkers end sequences you could possibly imagine. But I will say, the second that Hadrian got like his hands on the child of the prince and threatened to kill it, you knew that very second that you don't know how it's going to play out. You don't know how this is going to go, but I do know that whatever happens, Hadrian will pull the trigger. And of course he does, but I want to say that just the fact that you could see that coming a mile away does not for 1 second diminish the impact of that scene and just having it play out. Then just, I can't help but praise just the sheer plotting that is in this, the way the plot plays out, the way he's constantly, we're in negotiations. Then we're going to give Hadrian to him, but then the negotiations are going to fall apart. Then we end up in this weird standoff with the kid and the sword to his like neck. You're just like, dude, just like I said, the plotting is just stellar. And it's just breakneck pacing at this point in the book. And it just, wonderful. It's so good. I can't say enough about it. I will say the scene of Hadrian like dying was a little weird. I'm not sure how I felt about that. Like literally 1 second he gets his head cut off and like immediately he's like resurrected by the quiet, but he's like a mirror image of himself, because before he died he lost his right arm, but now it's his left that's gone. But don't worry, it's okay. We're all good. We're back to life. The quiet fixed us up there real quick. I don't know. I just don't know how I felt about that whole scene in general, but it's a blink of an eye. Blink and you'll miss it. It's over. Move on. And it's such a quick little thing, and it happens in the middle of a climax to a book that is just so awesome that we're just gonna move right along. It's okay. Don't let that upset you. But anyway, Hadrian ultimately kills the Cielsen prince. He's knighted by the emperor himself, and now he's gonna be off to go meet him. The end, kind of. And the whole thing is just absolutely great. But before it's over, we're going to get one more scene with Switch, which caught me completely off guard because, A, I didn't expect to see Switch again pop up at the end of the book after he told him to get lost. Then B, when he did show back up at the end of the book, I thought maybe there would be like a quick switch here. Maybe Hadrian would soften a bit on his previous decision to send him away, and then Switch would kind of be brought back into the group tentatively with some weird distrust between the two of them, and he would just have to like not feel right in the group anymore. But no, we get another scene of Hadrian telling him to get lost, get gone. I don't care where you go, what you do, just stay away from me. You are no longer welcome here. And Hadrian does it with this huge like resolve, and he's just like a statue of immovability on this issue. And he turns his back on him and he walks away like a pillar just to get inside of the airlock or wherever he goes. I think it's an airlock, to collapse on the floor into tears, just bawling under the weight of everything that has happened and the decisions that he has to make. And just, oh my gosh, it was such a good scene. So powerful. It was a great scene. The whole scene was great, but it was when he made it through the airlock and he collapsed was when I was like, dude, this is good. Like, this is genuinely impressive. For the most part, this book just has genuinely very strong writing throughout, and the character work was just such a step up from the previous book, or at least it was for me. They just hit so much harder for me, and they were so much more impressive and interesting. I was upset when Karn died. Like, he went down, and I was genuinely upset when he died because I was so interested in that character. And this is a character who deals in human slaves as currency. I should have been happy that he went down, and I was not. Like, I was like, I feel conflicted right now about my own feelings about what's happening in this book. Genuinely impressive. I cannot say enough. Now, like I said, it's not perfect. I feel like the storytelling stumbled a bit out of the gate, and I had a couple nitpicks throughout the book, but I'm going to settle on a solid 9 out of 10 for this book. This was genuinely impressive and genuinely a step up from the last one. As always, everybody, the link for my Patreon is in the description below. The link for my Discord's in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.